Today, we're going to finish our March series about having a new vision for our lives. Not from our own imaginings, that's not what this was about, but allowing Spirit, with the Spirit within us, to inspire us to have a new idea for ourselves. And if you were here with us all month, you'll remember that we started off visioning and listening to our highest self to discern something new. And then the next week we discussed the reality that in order to have something new, you got to let go. You got to release anything that doesn't align with that new thing. And then last week we discussed about how do we embrace and embody new aspects of ourselves so that we can be supported in the new idea that we have. And today we're going to finish this by talking about the level of commitment that's required to actually transform and live this new vision we have named. So I called my talk today A Wall or a Way. And I did that because Michael Beckwith wrote in his book Life Visioning, he said, where there is a willingness, there is a way. Where there is willfulness, there is a wall. So the sobering truth is that each and every one of us is going to be walking towards that new vision that we have, and we're either going to encounter this inner way inside of ourselves or an inner wall. And which is it going to be? So let's talk about that for a little bit. But first, I want to tell a story. So many years ago, I had these two good friends who lived in Waikiki. And I will have to say, it does not suck to have good friends that live in Hawaii. Right? So one year, I took my daughter Kelsey for her spring break to see my friends out there. And while they worked during the day, they didn't take the week off, we went around and did touristy things, and then we played with them in the evenings and weekends. So we were just kind of looking around all over the island of Oahu to see what we could do. And one of the tourist spots that we thought would be a fun place to explore was the Dole pineapple plantation. It's a really cool place to visit, especially if you like pineapple. And Kelsey and I both like pineapple because they have pineapple ice cream and they have pineapple t-shirts and pineapple candy. Anything you can do with a pineapple, they have it in their gift shop, right? So it was a very fun outing. But what I want to tell you about was their maze, and I've got a picture of it. That is the pineapple maze at the Dole Plantation. Has anyone happened to have ever been there? Oh, yay, there's some people there, so you're going to be able to relate. So as you can see, they have this very large garden maze, and you can enter, just for fun, to kind of see if you can get all the way through it. And I think you get stamps at the little stations or something like that. I don't really remember all the details, but most of you have been in a maze like this if you haven't been in that one, right? So it's kind of fun, and it's kind of not fun, but at least in my experience. So here Kelsey and I are, and we're going to go into this maze. And it wasn't the end of our day yet. We still hadn't done our shopping at the aforementioned visitor center. We hadn't gone in there yet, but we wanted to try the maze first. So our idea was that we would conquer this maze, and then we would go reward ourselves in the visitor center with some of that pineapple ice cream that we're watching everybody eat, right? So in we go. Now all mazes like this are different, but the walls on this maze are pretty high. They're pretty high. And you can't kind of see around them, and they all look the same. And it didn't take very long for us to get in there and grow very unfamiliar and a little bit frustrated in there. And we went this way and that way, and we kept ending up at dead end after dead end, and over we would kind of retrace our steps and go back to the last point we thought we made our choice and make a different choice, and then we would go a different way. And more often than not, we would run right back into a different wall, sometimes the same wall we had just encountered a minute ago. So wall after wall. And occasionally we would choose correctly, and we would get deeper into this maze, just to encounter, more turns, more wrong walls, or whatever. And have I mentioned it was a rather hot day? And did I mention that we were wanting the ice cream that was waiting for us? So suddenly we turned a corner, and there was a doorway in the wall in the maze that said exit. So we stopped, and I asked Kelsey, what do we want to do? Do we want to continue on in the maze and find our way out the other side, or do we take this magic exit door that is just appeared for us, right? And you can imagine what we chose, like out the exit door to get the ice cream. So our vision of becoming pineapple maze masters just kind of evaporated in the presence of this exit door and the awaiting shopping, right? So I know this is a kind of silly vacation story, but I think it's a great analogy for all of us, where we find ourselves today having this idea for our lives. So we're holding a vision of something new in our experience ahead, and we'll either encounter an inner way or an inner wall. And in that experience, Kelsey and I ran smack into our inner wall. Well, actually numerous walls, but that's the point. That's the problem to begin with. So that's what happened for our vision of being pineapple maze champions. We found a wall. Well, what about our other vision of ice cream, right? For that vision, we found a way. And it was really a way we weren't quite expecting, right? I think it was like a divine shortcut, which sometimes Spirit will delight you with on your way to yours, right? So basically, a few weeks ago, or maybe even years ago, you identified a high vision for yourself, something new. It could be a new job, a new place to live, a new relationship, a new opportunity, a new way of living. And if you haven't been here all month, just think for a second about something new you want in your life, or maybe sometime in your life before when you've decided you wanted something new. And the path between where you stand right now and standing in the middle of this newly visioned experience, that path between here and there is unknown. It's unknown. The twists and turns and choice points along the way are absolutely a mystery. So what does my experience with Kelsey in the maze teach us about that path and how to be successful on it, right? So what we've already discussed this month, as I mentioned, is that in order to make it through the maze and manifest your vision, you got to release anything unlike your vision. You have to let go of competing ideas and values and focus solely on the beliefs and thoughts and ideas that support this vision. And Kelsey and I didn't do that part. We didn't. We had competing ideas and visions going on, right? And that's very, very common for us as human beings, isn't it? One idea was to get through the maze, and one idea was to shop in the gift shop. One value was to be persistent and conquer, and one value was to be cool and free, right? So our ability to figure out the maze, the belief in our ability to figure out that maze, it was fleeting at best, right? Because we considered many thoughts along the way, and obviously the dominating thought was to let our vision of finishing the maze go. All right, we kept hitting a literal wall, but we also kept hitting that inner wall created by our willfulness to do something else. Kelsey and I hadn't fully embraced and embodied our maze vision either, right? We weren't becoming maze masters in our head. We hadn't stopped long enough before entering the maze to embrace this identity. We both have this identity of being puzzle solvers, right? And we also are not quitters. We're not quitters. We finish things. But we kept hitting that inner wall of these competing identities and desires. The bottom line is we were not committed to the vision of finishing the maze. Because if we had been committed, we would have found a way to do it. You're either going to hit a wall or you're going to find a way. And we hit a wall as far as the maze is concerned. But when you think about the ice cream, there was a way. There was a magical way with the magical opening towards that vision that we had. With the maze completion, there was a wall, but our willingness was simply stronger for ice cream. Our willingness was stronger. And that's throwing away the maze, that's a low cost vision to throw away. But your vision right now is probably far more impactful to your life than this kind of silly vacation story. Your vision will likely make a huge difference in your life. The question is, are you committed? Visioning is about personal transformation. Committing to the vision is committing to that transformation. It's about making a decision with Spirit to give your life energy to something new and better, and having the willingness to release whatever it is you have to release, and the willingness to embrace whatever new thing you have to embrace in order to have and live your new vision. You know, I often ask students in class, if you've been in a class with me, you probably had this experience where I ask you to write down something you really want. One thing in your life you really want. And they write down the very things y'all are talking about in your vision right now. Homes and jobs and marriages and savings accounts and travel and new friends and whatever it is. All those good things. And once they write down the thing they really want in their life, I kind of stun them by saying, no, you do not want what you just wrote down. And they start protesting. I do want it, Reverend Laine, I do, I really do. I explain that they don't want that thing the most. They don't want it the most. They want something else more, and in some cases, many things more than the idea that they wrote down. And, you know, probably if you think about your vision, you can relate to that. You have more than one thing that you want. Because guess what? You're a spiritual being and you're a human being. And so you want many things at the same time. So the spiritual side of yourself, your soul wants unique experiences. It wants to express itself in new ways and take in these human sensations of all kinds. Your soul wants change and life-affirming breaths of fresh air, whether that's literally or figuratively. And typically the students are writing down things that their souls want. And your vision is likely something your soul is craving. But often it's our human sides, our humanness that wins, because your soul can't trump. Your soul can't take over and say, no, we're going to do something. Your human self has control of your life. Our human self has that willfulness that Michael Beckwith talked about at the top of the talk. It's willful. Our human self wants stability and safety and predictability. It wants the devil it knows, right? It does. And it wants to stick with the identity that it chose a long, long time ago. It has that tribe mentality. And your human self fears stepping outside the norms of whatever's going on around you. So often it is our willful human side that creates the wall. Our soul desires a way. With its willingness, your soul will surrender because it's not attached to anything. So the soul will surrender everything old for something new. But the human side stops it with a wall. So which is it going to be? Which is it going to be? So in our organization's global vision, it says this: we see a world in which each and every person lives in alignment with his or her highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world in which individually and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. So Ernest Holmes' teachings emphasize that when we live in alignment with our highest selves, we're connected to the God within and we're connected to each other. And when we live in that alignment, we're called to higher ways of living and being and choosing. So your vision is what is seeking to emerge in your life. Likely you see more love when you think of your vision. You see more hope. You see more abundance. You see more harmony and joy. Because those are the qualities that call us toward better experiences in our lives and ways of living. And those are the qualities that your soul wishes to express into the world through your life. And our invitation is to be a willing and able vehicle for the vision to come forth into the world through us. Albert Einstein said, you cannot solve your problems with the same thinking you used when you created them, right? So he's saying the same thing that Holmes said when he taught that it takes a higher level of consciousness to transform our lives. If we want something different, we have to let go of our willful clinging to our old thinking and be willing to think something new and better that's inspired by our vision. And when we rise to a higher idea, which is always to allow God's love to flow through us and express love in your own unique way, that's always the calling, we transform. And then our commitment is about being willing to love ourselves more, love other people more, and love our lives and the world more. That's always what's wanting to happen. That willingness changes everything, because that willingness is what creates the way. You know, speaking of God's flow, reminds me of an old analogy. Terry and I planted some new plants in containers, and I have to water them. I'm assigned to the watering. And when I went to get the hose, I turned the spigot on the outside of the house, and when I got the hose all the way over to the containers, only a trickle of water came out. You had that experience, right? So you've done it many times. You have to retrace your steps along the hose to find out where the kinks are in the hose, and you unkink it in a couple of places, right? And then it works again. So once I did that, the water flowed fully through the hose and onto the plants, right? And that is just like the spiritual energy of God, that creative energy in your life. That creative life energy is always flowing fully. You don't have to worry about the source because it's always on. What we have to worry about is how we are kinking the hose. So often we have to retrace the steps along the hose of our life and figure out where we've kinked it. We have to investigate the old ideas, the old survival techniques that have lasted long beyond whatever the situation was. You know, that self-protection that we create. You know, we got to heal that and let that go. And then the hose is released. The flow of God's energy can flow better. Shame and self-doubt kink our hose. Fear kinks our hose. Ideas of unworthiness and isolation kink our hose. Our spiritual work is to remove these obstacles and allow that spiritual energy to flow and create through us. Because these kind of kinks are the things that create the walls. They create the walls that block us from our vision. And they're always from the past. They're always from the past, and they're showing us what you've got to address again. Because old beliefs and old scripts that anchor in those thoughts and beliefs, those old patterns, they're no longer necessary. That's why they're being called forth to release. And when we run into one of those walls, we're invited to remember our vision and embrace newness and release the old stuff. And when we're willing to do that, we unkink our hose and Spirit flows us to the way toward our vision. You know, pressing on and changing isn't always easy. It's not. It takes commitment and a willingness to transform inside ourselves and to allow our outer world to shift and transform too. It takes commitment to spiritual growth and healing, and it takes a deep knowing that if I walk away from the wall, then I cannot let it block me, and a way will be made clear. Sometimes you have to leave the wall and then find the way. You have to have faith that the way will show itself. Because when we are willing, a way will reveal itself, and that way may not look familiar. The way looks different. It may look scary because it requires you to stretch into something new, into a new way of being. And it's often mysterious, like it's going in a different direction than you thought it would be going. You know, Spirit always has ways that are amazingly creative and surprising. But be willing to follow kind of the spiritual breadcrumbs that you see by saying yes. Say yes to new invitations, new opportunities, and new pathways. You know, when I'm coaching someone who's wanting something new in their life, that job, that relationship, that opportunity, or whatever, I say to them, accept every invitation you receive. Go down a different road when you drive. Go different places. Meet different people. Shop at different shops. Have different experiences. Because Spirit will give you hunches or ideas or thoughts or nudges that you simply cannot see when you're going in your same pattern over and over again. When you're looking at the same things you've been looking at for years, you're not going to notice something new. So changing little things signifies to the universe that you're ready to change big things. Commit to your transformation and a way will be made clear. I want to close with a quote from Ernest Holmes' Sermon by the Sea. Ernest Holmes' Sermon by the Sea was given shortly before his transition in 1959. And this is what he said. We are taking, I trust, a vision, something beyond a hope and a longing, that the living Spirit shall through us walk anew into its own creation, and a new glory come with the dawn. Whatever your vision, trust that it has been given to you by Spirit. Trust that contained in the vision is everything necessary to manifest it, to magnetize to it anything it needs. Release everything that blocks you, embrace everything that supports your new identity, and say yes to change, and deeply commit to your own transformation, because the living Spirit shall walk as you newly into life that you envision and bring glory with the new day. So please join me in our one sentence affirmation. I am committed to my personal growth and transformation as the way becomes clear before me. And so it is.
And so